Check it out. Co-powered by Volta's All-Star Inverter AC. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Check It Out on WION, and today Sahil and I are looking at what we do through the lens of technology. Yesterday we look at journalism and how it's evolved thanks to technology.
And of course, as Sejal and I are both journalists, well, at least one of us is a proper one.
That's me.
Me. We thought we'd explore what it means to be a journalist in the 21st century.
So take a look at all that we have for you on the show this week. On this week's episode of Check It Out, we talk about buzzing trends in the field of journalism and how digital technology has dramatically changed the way we consume and create news. Not just that, we also find out if the latest Xiaomi Redmi 4A and Samsung Galaxy S8 smartphone offerings will be a hit or a miss for their respective companies.
You know, Sejal, it's difficult to imagine that 30 years back, journalists didn't have any smartphones, they didn't have any blogs, any live media streaming services. I mean, how did they actually get any work done?
You're right, Sahil. I think even I've wondered this, for the longest time, that how journalists got through with everything that they did back in, a couple of decades ago. Because right now we rely so much on technology to get our stuff done. I think the BlackBerry really changed it for journalists, where they could just send bytes to each other wherever they were. But I think just like every other professional before this boom of technology, just use more elbow grease, I guess.
But do you get the sense that today journalists are somewhat lazy and over-dependent on technology?
I think that's kind of you.
Which part? The lazy part or the over-dependency on technology?
Both.
Thanks, okay.
You're a technology journalist after all, sir.
It's not a real profession.
No, I'm kidding. But to be serious, I think things have drastically changed in the last 2-3 decades. While the elements of news remain the same, the way it's consumed and the way it's delivered to the consumer has really changed.
Wow, Professor Sejal, look at you. I like it. But I also agree with you. But more importantly, I think the way in which news is consumed and the way in which content is consumed is completely changing, right? Because the amount of competition there's out there fighting for the viewer's attention, it's significant.
Absolutely.
So whatever content comes out now has to be creative, it has to be different, it has to be completely out of the box.
Right. And with everyone having access to technology, it becomes imperative for whoever's putting content out there to put it really responsibly,
Right.
So, storytellers and journalists, if they want to get really creative, I think they should go in for virtual reality and 360-degree videos and stuff.
Right, so I think what she's talking about is called immersive storytelling, and it's a great way to hack into someone's brain. In a good way, of course. Take a look.
Immersive storytelling is when the viewer of the content is literally submerged within the content. That means that he's no longer viewing a video from the point of view of the DOP or a director. He has literally a 360-degree environment around him, and it's up to the viewer to choose where he wants to look. There are many schools of thoughts, but fundamentally, all VR videos are in 360. 360 videos are not necessarily in VR. Now, what does this mean? So, virtual reality is exactly that. It's reality in a virtual environment. So, what most people will say that a VR video is actually one that is synthetic. It's generated by computer graphics, is done using software like Unity, Maya, the way literally the same kind of software that gamers will use. This kind of software is used to create a virtual world. But what makes it a virtual reality video is the fact that it's not just a regular, flat 2D virtual world, it's a 360-degree virtual world. And going one step further with VR, it's not just a 360-degree virtual world that is computer generated. You can interact with that world. Whereas a 360 headset, most of them are wireless. There's a whole range of them, from Google Cardboard, which is the most basic version, to a Samsung Gear, which are wireless. You just stick your mobile phone in there, you download videos from the internet, from YouTube, that are in 360, and you can immediately experience that environment. Videos actually have a fantastic application in journalism. To start with, well, the disclaimer is that you cannot use 360 videos for all kinds of journalism, but there are specific stories and a certain kind of story that is a perfect fit for 360. What 360 does is it gives the viewer a chance to look at the whole environment. So if you as a journalist are really trying to express maybe what a political rally looks like, if you're trying to express what a conflict zone looks like, what better way to do it than to connect with your viewer in an environment where you're letting the viewer look at everything. So for journalism, it's very important because it can really put a viewer in the midst of the content. Step one is deciding what kind of content are you shooting and does it warrant 360 or not. You know, you really should not do 360 because you can. You should do 360 because it enhances your storytelling capability. Step two is you will go for the shoot. Now what's completely different for a 360-degree shoot compared to others is that the camera itself has lenses on all sides. It's literally capturing everything around. So when I'm at the shoot, I will not even think of things like setting up lights, for example. The camera is going to see the lights. It's also going to see the man managing the lights. It's also going to see a camera person. And then, of course, step three is post-production. Like with any other kind of content, there are specific software. You can use traditional software as well, you know, known software like Adobe Premiere, for example, Final Cut Pro. These kind of software do have plugins that are specific for 360-degree content, so you can use these. But if you're using more specialized cameras like a GoPro Omni, for example, it comes with its own set of software which is specific to those cameras. First off, like we said, as a producer or a camera person, you cannot be anywhere in the frame unless you plan your scene in such a way. You suddenly really have to realize that there's no behind-the-scene action. You don't really have a chance to control the content. There's no real preview as such. So this post-production process is getting simpler and simpler. There's more and more advanced technology to do that. But the stitching, especially the more cameras there are and the more advanced your equipment is, the more lenses you will have in each setup. So the stitching process can be quite complex. Rendering time it takes forever. Another thing that producers need to still figure out, again, this whole world is in complete trial and error phase, is what is the right duration for a 360 or a VR video. Very important with VR and 360 content, again, is that you're creating a 360 world or a virtual reality world for a reason. If producers of this content just start to put their cameras anywhere and create content for the sake of it, yes, there is a chance that it will start to be viewed as an unnecessary tool. Because not all stories are meant for 360. Not all journalists require it for a narrative that they are trying to tell. You really have to have the sensibilities to identify the right narrative to fit a 360-degree environment. But if this is done, and you are choosing the right stories to tell in 360, then yes, absolutely, it is 100% revolutionary.
That was a great story, man. I mean,
totally. I think we should get some tips from Devina.
Yeah, we should totally get some tips from Devina, and also we should totally shoot one of these episodes using nothing but 360 and virtual reality.
Absolutely.
I think that'll be next level stuff. But that of course will happen not anytime soon, but hopefully soonish. But in the meantime, we're going to take a very short break on the show now, but more technology action on the other side. See you very soon. Welcome back. You're watching our digital journalism special on Tech It Out.
Now, thanks to digital technology and wireless connectivity, a reporter can capture the news from just about anywhere and upload it to YouTube within minutes.
And not just that, ordinary citizens today are becoming journalists because you can break the news that matters to you with nothing more than a smartphone and a Twitter account.
You know, but Sahil, I have a question here. If anyone can become a journalist today, how do we trust them? How do we trust what they're putting up is real and not fake?
Okay, so that's a great question. I think that question is best answered by Tanmoy Goswami, an award-winning journalist that I interviewed, because that's what I do. I interview award-winning journalists. That's just how I roll. But I asked him, what the future holds for digital journalism and how that bright future is going to be shaped by technology. Take a look. Hey guys, joining me today is Tanmay Goswami, former head of desk at Fortune India. Tanmay, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us here on WION. So let me start by asking you, what do you think is the difference between journalism, let's say 3 decades ago, and journalism today in the current situation, given the current situation today?
Thanks, Sahil, for having me. So growing up in a small town in eastern India, the media was this magical space, for young people and teenagers. And I remember my father used to bring home the Hindu and Reader's Digest and shove it down my throat and say, if you want to make something of yourself, this is your Bible. And I think that sacredness around the media has waned. And that to me is the big difference between the perception of media 3 decades ago, 2 decades ago and today.
So what impact has the evolution of technology had on the field of journalism overall?
I think the biggest impact that technology has really had is it has made professionals sit up and question their place in public conversations. The power that media professionals had in controlling conversations and deciding how much news makes it out there into the public mind. I think that power has by and large become a thing of the past because conversations are no longer shaped by 1 or 2 people sitting in a newsroom in Delhi or Bombay. As we know in this industry today, there is a crisis of credibility, and because technology has empowered everybody on the street pretty much to create content, put it out there, the journalist is increasingly questioning, these are existential questions. What is my value? Where do I stand between the story and the consumer? What is my role? And I think that to me is the most exciting role that technology has played, is that it has made the journalist much more, and also production people, much more self-aware. You can take far fewer things for granted if you're in this profession today.
Okay, Tanmay, so I'm getting the gist of what you're saying, but my question is, can anyone with a smartphone in today's day and age become a journalist? And is that necessarily a good thing?
So I think, this is a very interesting question, and I think we have to understand what the word journalist really means. It is not the same as doctor or lawyer. And there was a running joke that, anybody, potentially when you don't land a job in any other industry, you can become a journalist. And that's because anybody in the world can get up and start telling stories. Right. That's essentially the business that we are in. We tell stories. Yeah. Anybody who understands how to tell a good story could become a journalist, to the same extent that, a demagogue could become a journalist or a political leader. Of course, anybody can get up and appropriate the tag of being a journalist. But I think what differentiates the person on the street from a journalist is 2 things primarily: access and training. Yes, anybody could potentially get up and start doing the job. Whether consumers will take that person seriously, of course, is a different
right, so that was actually going to be my next question. I mean, considering, in today's day and age, anyone can use their phone and become a journalist. Considering yes. that, I mean, how do we know how to trust them? How do we know that this journalist or this upcoming journalist is someone who has credibility or has integrity or is unbiased? How do we know that?
So I think as readers, consumers, you've got to use your own discernment a little bit. Follow journalists, for a period of time, see what their slant is on important issues, and take a call. It's very hard work. And I think trust is also a factor of, as a reader, how evolved are you and whether you have a very diverse set of interests. If you have your head in the sand and if you only care about, let's say, cricket and politics, your job is much easier because then there's only so much that you need to be looking out for. But if you are a man of the world and, if you have, a multiplicity of interests, then it becomes more complicated.
Right. So I also just want to quickly talk about citizen journalism with you. I mean, we know for a fact that citizen journalism has shaped a lot of events. Like a fairly recent example would be the reporting of hate crimes after Brexit took place.
Sure.
We saw how technology and social media played a massive role in understanding what was actually happening in England, what was actually happening in UK after Brexit. Yeah. I mean, do you see citizen journalism as the way forward, or should we leave news gathering and news reporting to the professionals?
Bro, I'll waste you. So I think the big difference between citizen journalism and other kinds of journalism is that citizen journalism is by definition a lot more solution oriented, and that can never be a bad thing. That's a great thing. The insecurity that somehow the quality of news might get diluted if a lot of non-experts come into this field, I think is misplaced, because citizen journalists don't get into this with the mindset of becoming professional journalists. They take up the mic because they have a problem which nobody else is able to resolve. They take matters in their own hand. They want their voice to be heard. To that extent, I think it's a great development, and it should be taken as that. It should never be confused with other kinds of professional journalism.
So what's your take on Twitter and live media streamings like Periscope? I mean, what impact is that having in the new age of journalism? What's your take on that?
I think so. Twitter is probably one of the most polarizing entities in the modern world.
It's there for equal voice, but
yes.
not everyone uses it like that.
Yes.
I'm not just talking about Donald Trump.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people, in fact.
Yes.
So it's got that contradiction. Yes,
yes.
it's got equal voice,
yes.
but hey, we'll also troll you at the same time.
Yes.
So
yes.
And journalists, a lot of journalists now, even the most mainstream journalists, use that as a tool, as an effective tool to send out their message, to report. But again, that whole trolling situation. I mean, what's your take? How do you see that panning out, especially in regards to Twitter?
I think you have to be fairly thick-skinned if you want to have a peaceful existence on Twitter. As a journalist, you need to have, once again, the discernment to know what is valid criticism and what is just trolling, as you put it. I personally believe in engaging with trolls because, I
Is
feel
that
like
a good idea?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
You've got to be wise. You've got to figure out if something is that important to you that you want to open up the floodgates. I think the thing about Twitter that makes it a very compelling platform for journalists and for people who want to discover news is the real-time nature of it. And tomorrow, and Twitter has been engulfed in a lot of problems of its own as a business, but I think the idea of Twitter is here to stay. Twitter as a platform might undergo some metamorphosis, or a better platform might come into being. But this idea of real-time news and disintermediation, I think that's a very powerful idea that's here to stay.
Right, so what do you think are some of the biggest challenges in front of a digital journalist going forward? What are the biggest challenges? What are some of the obstacles that a journalist can face? And how can technology help a journalist, upcoming journalist, overcome those obstacles?
So I think the biggest challenge really is to constantly reinvent your skills. And because there are very few institutions in India that are equipped to skill you as a digital journalist, it has got to be a self-driven exercise for most of us. The opportunity around technology is that you can now take a portfolio approach to your career. What I mean by that is your byline or your presence as journalist in the public mind is not restricted to one brand or to one outlet. The conventional model of employment does not necessarily have to hold good for you. If you understand how to use Instagram, how to use Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn to your advantage, this is a very, very good time to be a freelancer in this industry because you have access to ready-made audiences. If you have faith in your own voice, if you have substance to offer, you can be completely platform agnostic and make a very good living, very respectable living by just milking these various digital platforms. So I think that is the big opportunity.
Okay, Tanmay, I think on that positive note, I think we leave it there. But thank you so much for all your input. It was a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks,
thank you so much.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Right, we're going to slip into a very quick break on the show now.
But when we come back, we will review the all-new Xiaomi Redmi 4A. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us on Tech It Out on WION. Now, if you're looking to buy an extremely affordable budget smartphone in India, then Xiaomi believes they have exactly what you're looking for.
That's right, because at 5,999 rupees, the Xiaomi Redmi 4A is the most affordable handset in the Redmi series in 2017 in India.
That's right. So up next, Ankit will review Xiaomi's latest offering for us. But I'm really surprised, Sahil, that you're letting Ankit do this. Usually you like to take all the limelight over the reviews.
Well, I think it's a good time for my child, to grow, for him to go out there and, take some risks. And also, I'm a pretty selfless person. I think other people in the team should also absolutely review gadgets. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's a great idea in spirit, but what's really disturbing out here, Sahil? Actually, I don't know what's more disturbing, whether Ankit's your child or you're selfless. Either way, Ankit, this is all yours. Take it away, buddy.
It's not every day that you come across a good-looking phone with a jaw-dropping price tag. And the Redmi 4A is exactly what qualifies as one. The phone not only looks great, but its lightweight makes it comfortable to hold as well. And the cherry on top is that the phone is so compact that you can easily operate it with a single hand. While the phone is already up for grabs online, but only in two colors, gold and grey. The third color variant that you see here on Check It Out is rose gold, and it will go on sale in India from April 6. We suggest you to opt for either the grey or rose gold, because from the looks alone, the gold one takes the third spot in our list. The good in the Redmi 4A doesn't end with the looks. The 5-inch HD display on the phone is pleasant to eyes and produces good colors. But what surprises us the most is its cameras. Generally, camera results on low-end phones don't leave you satisfied, but the Redmi 4A is here to change that notion. Its 13-megapixel rear camera generates excellent results with exactly the same colors as you see in the real world, not only in sunlight but in room-light conditions too. And the 5-megapixel front camera is totally perfect for selfies.
This is the lightest Redmi we've ever made, but it still has a over 3000 mAh battery. It has the Snapdragon 425 processor, as I'm sure you know. It's one of the things that people normally skip on, but this thing can run, heavy games, and it can do it well.
Under the hood is a Snapdragon 425 processor with 2 GB of RAM, which is fair enough for decent multitasking. But just because it offers premium features, don't try to run it like a mid-range phone. Don't forget that after all, it's a 6,000 rupee phone. And for all you music lovers, the speaker at the back is fairly loud and produces clear audio results. And if the chatty in you always wished for more than one WhatsApp account, then this is the phone for you, as it lets you run 2 WhatsApp accounts at the same time.
It's called Dual Apps, and actually this works for any app on your phone, not just WhatsApp. And so what you do is you go into settings and you just select, okay, I want a second version of this app. And what we do in Android, there's a feature called multi-user. So that lets you have 2 different users on the phone. So we've actually modified multi-user, and we've basically made a small instance of multi-user within your primary phone.
All in all, the Redmi 4A is the best phone right now in this price category, with a battery decent enough to last for a day when it's put to normal use. And don't worry about the storage, as the phone supports microSD card in case you need extra space. Well, the smartphone market may be crowded and competitive. You may have a lot of good options to choose from. But when it comes to the low-cost smartphone market, there are not really too many options to make a choice from. But with the Redmi 4A out, we can't say that anymore. So for all those who are tight on budget and looking for that right phone in the low-cost smartphone market, the Redmi 4A is the answer for you.
Well, that's all the time we have on this episode of Check It Out. But before we leave, a little treat for you guys. Massive Samsung event that took place in New York, where the company unveiled its much anticipated Galaxy S8. And let's hope that this one doesn't quite explode.
Well, you can of course follow us on Twitter and Facebook at @WION_TechItOut is our Twitter handle. And for all the news and other updates, keep watching WION. We'll see you same time next week. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Samsung has finally unveiled its 2017 flagship smartphone at its mega launch event in New York. It comes in 2 different screen sizes, the 5.8-inch Galaxy S8 and 6.2 Galaxy S8 Plus. The launch comes at a time when the South Korean tech giant is still recovering after exploding Galaxy Note 7 phones damaged Samsung's brand last fall. The company is also facing growing competition from the high end of the market, especially from Apple's iPhone. So the launch of the S8 and S8 Plus is a fairly high-stakes moment for Samsung. Now there are a few takeaways that you need to know about the Galaxy S8 features: a so-called infinity display, giving the device a bezel-less curved edge and a 12-megapixel back camera. Samsung has got rid of the home button, instead providing a tap-sensitive area under the display which it calls the invisible home button.
Meet Bixby.
Samsung also revealed the much-expected Bixby, a smart voice assistant to rival Apple's Siri.
It knows what's happening on your screen.
Completely different with the Infinity Display's cinematic full-screen experience.
Apart from the display, there are barely any major changes that the new flagship phone has got. There is also no word on the pricing or when the phone will hit the Indian markets, but in the US, pre-orders for the phone begin on March 30th, with the shipping starting on April 21st.
Check it out. Co-powered by Volta's All-Star Inverter AC.